A fatal incident at sea, a tense diplomatic standoff, and a breathtaking scientific breakthrough. Welcome to this explainer, where we are unpacking a narrative that literally plays out like a high-stakes geopolitical thriller. Today, we're going to examine how a sudden tragedy has exposed some deep historical fault lines between two major global powers. And as you'll see, we'll explore how one nation is answering that pressure, not just with words, but with a massive, mind-bending technological leap right up into the atmosphere. The stakes really couldn't be higher.
To understand this crisis, we have to start with a massive wave of outrage detailed in the source material, stemming from a stark, almost unbelievable contrast. You see, New Delhi expected a simple acknowledgement, maybe a token condolence, or at least an explanation for the use of lethal force after the tragic loss of its citizens. But instead, Washington delivered a cold, stark warning. Violations of the US blockade would not be tolerated. So what exactly was the immediate catalyst for all this? The source lays it out plainly right here. 3 Indian mariners are dead. They were killed in a US strike during a West Asian conflict involving Iran. And the report specifically frames this as innocent people dying in a war initiated by America against its adversary. It's a localized conflict, but with global casualties, thrusting completely ordinary sailors into the deadly crossfire of superpower maneuvering.
Act 1. Fatal strike at sea.
The diplomatic fallout from this was instantaneous, and it was intense. The report details how India immediately lodged a formal protest, and we aren't just talking about a few low-level bureaucratic memos being pushed around. The External Affairs Minister himself, Dr. S. J. Shankar, picked up the phone. The U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Jason Meeks was actually summoned by the Ministry of External Affairs not once, but twice in less than 48 hours. J. Shankar made it clear that the use of lethal force against commercial shipping simply wasn't justified. Yet despite all this high-level urgency, the source notes that 0 apologies or even token condolences materialized. Instead of an apology, this was the message that came down. It's attributed by the source to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Violations of the U.S. blockade will not be tolerated. The report heavily criticizes this response, calling it remarkably oblivious and just incredibly tone-deaf to the loss of innocent lives. The analysis actually poses a really pointed question. If American civilians had been killed, would Washington ever accept a response like this? The source argues that the U.S. is actively prioritizing its blockade over the lives of international citizens caught in the crossfire.
Moving into Act 2, a history of tension.
Now, the source makes it incredibly clear that this tragedy isn't happening in a vacuum. Let's look back at 1998. After India conducted the Pokhran 2 nuclear tests, the US imposed some of the toughest sanctions India had ever faced, cutting off aid and opposing international loans. Jump forward to 2013. Indian diplomat Devyani Khandragade was arrested in New York, which prompted New Delhi to fiercely retaliate by stripping security privileges from the US embassy. And more recently, during the Trump era, the US slapped harsh tariffs on India simply for purchasing Russian oil to meet the vast energy needs of its 1.4 billion people. The narrative the source is building here is a perceived, ongoing attempt by Washington to force India to just fall in line.
But historically, India's response to this kind of pressure is pretty definitive. Just look at what former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee stated during those 1998 sanctions: India will not be cowed down by such threats. The central narrative being constructed by the report is that instead of buckling under American pressure, India absorbs the shock, it expands its economic partnerships, and it fiercely strengthens its own indigenous capabilities.
Which leads the source to ask this incredibly tense, pivotal question. Has Washington pushed India's patience too far? The report suggests that New Delhi is getting tired of a one-way street friendship. If the U.S. won't end what the source calls its bullying tactics, the analysis really wonders if it's time for India to permanently end its strategic restraint towards the United States.
Which brings us to Act 3, building the missile shield.
Right as this geopolitical friction was peaking, India pulled off an absolutely staggering technological milestone. On June 10th and 11th, at the Integrated Test Range in Chandipur, Odisha, India's Defense Research and Development Organization ran 3 back-to-back flight tests. And the result? A highly successful demonstration of a multi-layered ballistic missile defense system. The source emphasizes a crucial point here. The easiest part of modern warfare is pressing the launch button. The absolute hardest part is actually seeing, tracking, and stopping a threat once it's already in the air.
These successful tests elevate India into an incredibly exclusive group. The United States, Russia, China, Israel, and now India. These are the only nations on Earth that have demonstrated advanced missile defense capabilities that can intercept some of the most devastating weapons ever created. The source calls it an elite club, noting that India now effectively has its very own version of an Iron Dome, specifically designed for massive ballistic threats.
To truly grasp what this Defiance shield is up against, you have to wrap your head around this terrifying number: 28,000 kilometers per hour. That is how fast an Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, or ICBM, can travel. To put that into perspective, that is fast enough to fly from New York to London in under 15 minutes. These weapons are designed to deliver warheads across entirely different continents. That means a missile launched from China could cross the globe to strike North America at those staggering velocities.
Intercepting something moving that fast is a near impossible physics problem. You see, an ICBM attack happens in 3 blistering phases. First is the boost phase, where those massive rocket engines violently fire and accelerate the missile. Second is the mid-course phase. This is actually the longest part of the flight, where the missile is literally traveling through the vacuum of space, sometimes hitting altitudes of over 1,000 kilometers. Finally, you have the terminal phase, where the warhead re-enters Earth's atmosphere, plummeting down on its target at hypersonic speeds.
But wait, it gets even harder. Speed isn't the only problem here. The source highlights incredible threat multipliers that make interception an absolute nightmare. These missiles are traveling several kilometers every single second. Plus, many of them carry MIRVs. That stands for Multiple Independently Targetable Reentry Vehicles. Basically, it means one single missile can suddenly split open and release several different warheads, all aimed at completely different targets. Add in the fact that they actively deploy fake decoys and countermeasures to blind defense radar, and you really start to see the monumental challenge we're talking about.
So how do you combat that? Well, India tested a multi-layered shield. The first layer is what defense experts call exo-hemispheric interception. This means the defense system calculates the threat's trajectory, launches an interceptor, and physically shoots down the incoming weapon high up in that mid-course phase we just talked about, entirely outside the dense layers of Earth's atmosphere. They are literally destroying the threat in the cold, dead vacuum of space before it even begins its final descent. But what if that first shot misses? Or what if a clever decoy tricks the space interceptor? That is exactly where the second layer comes in: endo-atmospheric interception. This is the crucial backup system. If the threat manages to slip through space, a second interceptor engages and destroys the missile as it violently re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. As the source points out, building a system that can reliably perform this takes years of painstaking science, elite engineering, and just immense national resolve.
Military analysts use a very specific phrase to describe this technological feat, and the source leans heavily on it here. Intercepting a ballistic missile in flight is like hitting a bullet with a bullet. Except in this scenario, both of those bullets are traveling at hypersonic speeds. One of them might be releasing fake bullets to confuse you, and the actual collision is happening in the vacuum of space. It is an absolute triumph of mathematical precision.
And that leads us to our conclusion: a new strategic reality.
When you take that intense geopolitical tension from the beginning of our explainer, and you combine it with this brand new technological reality, a truly fascinating picture emerges. The source leaves us with this profound thought: a sword wins battles, a shield prevents them. Building this incredible technology isn't just about preparing for a war, it's about building confidence. The confidence that a nation's skies can be defended, that its people are protected, and crucially, tying this all back to that diplomatic crisis, the confidence that no adversary, no matter how incredibly powerful they are, can dictate terms through intimidation or blockades.
We've seen the outrage over lost lives, the firm rejection of token diplomacy, and the historical refusal to just bow down to sanctions. So here's the ultimate question we're left with. Armed with an elite shield in the sky capable of stopping the world's most devastating weapons, will India permanently abandon its strategic restraint on the global stage? How will this newfound technological invulnerability reshape their response the very next time a superpower issues a stark warning? It's a gripping reality and one that will undoubtedly shape the future of global diplomacy.